Hello! Today we will be looking at a series of assignments in Module 4 that will have you be creating your own resume and CV or curriculum vitae in order to sell employers and graduate schools on why they should take you into their organization. And then you will be doing peer review of these documents. So after you make these two documents, you'll be sharing them with several of your classmates, and you will critique or provide feedback to two of your classmates in order to help make their documents stronger. As we are right now completing this instructional video, the link will show up here on your Canvas site once this has been recorded. There are a couple of key things that are really important to understand about doing peer review well. The first thing is to make sure that you read the particular document all the way through before you comment on it. Sometimes the questions you have will be answered later on, and that might be some of the feedback you give as to how to organize the document better. Leave enough time to do this well. If there's anything that's unclear in what you're being asked to review, ask the instructor. Make sure that you're talking about strengths as well as weaknesses of what you're reviewing. Nobody likes it when they get a paper back and the only thing that the person has commented on are all the things that are wrong, instead of also pointing out the things that are right or good. Make sure you're offering suggestions, not commands on what to do. Be appropriate and constructive. You're not trying to hurt people's feelings or be rude, but you do want to give specific feedback so that they can get better. Make sure that your comments are clear and text specific so that they will know what you suggest to be done. Raise any questions while trying not to overwhelm the person you're giving feedback to. Reread your comments before providing them so that they make sure that they make sense. And lastly, make sure that you're mindful of the fact that your opinions can bias your perspective. If, for example, the person has been very active with Republican causes and you are a Democrat, you shouldn't critique the fact that they are a Democrat. You should be critiquing them on whether or not they are presenting their skills and experience as well. If we look at the next part then, when you are creating your resume and CV, there are guidelines for you to be following while you're doing your peer review here in the rubric. So each of these items has some suggestions for what the resume should look like and what the CV or curriculum vitae should look like. And if you pull up the description, it tells you more specific things about that requirement. So for example, in describing the education, it includes the list of college degrees. Did I get a bachelor's or an associate's? The institution, was it Miami or some other school, and the dates of attendance. Note that some people for education will not put dates if they have been in their career a long time and they don't want their age to be considered to bias them. Otherwise, it is fairly typical to list dates of when you completed things. Now, if we are figuring out how to do peer review well, let's look at a particular example. So I've pulled up a sample resume that's available, and remembering these guidelines along with it to how to do peer review well. If we look at this document or a sample resume that's also available on Canvas for you, the first thing to know is that it looks fairly plain. It is hard to see the different sections and where things stand out. There is some misalignment here on the side, and if we went through and saw any typos, we would want to make sure to point those out to people. Any spelling or grammar errors, these are things that some employers or graduate schools, if they see, will just rule out candidate before even looking at the content. So one of the first things that I might suggest is to make sure that this is visually a little bit more pleasing. Leave some spaces between the different items on the resume. Make sure that the alignment lines up here, and perhaps use a font that's a little bit easier to read. This one does not make it easy to see the different pieces just right off the bat. The next thing that we might take a look at is whether they have used descriptive language in the resume. So here we do have a listing of the college and where the person has graduated high school, any awards or honors, so this section is pretty clear. But when we drop down to the experience section, there's some places we could strengthen the language. So for example, while they do a chronological list here from that has the dates listed of different experiences, they're not in any particular order. They're not alphabetical or chronological. They also sometimes just highlight what they did instead of using strength-based descriptives or powerful descriptives. So instead of interacted with and supported children, you might specifically describe what it is that you did, or put it in terms of another skill set. So not that I'm in training to do case management, but what did you learn in case management? How have you started to answer hotline calls? How many calls have you taken? How many people have you worked with? The other thing here, for example, in this section about intern, just says, I was an intern. I worked with kids. I was a counselor. So instead of describing the role, you might describe the skills that you learned or the benefits that you got out of that in terms of your professional development. Same thing here. I worked as an art monitor. What if somebody doesn't know what that means? Describe what a monitor is and how those skills might translate to a new job. Okay. If we are looking at strengths, the person does have a good list of sections here. They include work and other experiences. They have demonstrated leadership activities. They talk about skills. Those are all things employers like to see. So in each of those sections, you could praise the fact, if we look at strengths, that the person has a number of different opportunities listed that would be attractive to a prospective employer or graduate school. If you have questions, again, like what is an art monitor, what specifically did you do as a mentor, those questions would be good to raise. And you want to make sure at anything that you're pointing out, don't be afraid to raise those questions or to give the person feedback, because if our goal is to help our friend or classmate get a job, we need them to be able to put their best foot forward. In other words, to show themselves in the best light. I hope this will give you an overview of how to do peer review well. Again, make sure that you are attending to the specific requirements when you're looking at the different things that are expected for each section of the resume and CV. You will have looked at this already when you create your own. Make sure that you've opened up a copy or maybe print out a copy to set beside you and consider each of these requirements while you're looking at your peers' work as well.